The judge looked at my son over her reading glasses. "Mr. Remington, you swear under oath that your father signed these mortgage documents on July 10th, 2024 at a Chase Bank in downtown Chicago?" My son did not hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor. I was there with him." Judge Holloway turned to me. "Mr. Beckett Remington, do you have anything to say?" I stood up. My knees cracked. 40 years on factory floors will do that. I pulled a photograph from my jacket pocket. Me at Disney World, wearing a ridiculous Mickey Mouse hat my grandson picked out, holding a churro. The timestamp read July 10th, 2024, 2:47 p.m. Your Honor, on July 10th, I was in Orlando, Florida, visiting my sister. I have boarding passes, hotel receipts, and about 200 photos of me making a fool of myself on Space Mountain. I was nowhere near Chicago. My son just committed perjury. The courtroom went silent. My son's face turned the color of old newspaper. That was 3 months ago. Let me tell you how we got there. I am Beckett Remington. Most people call me Beck. I am 73 years old, and I spent the last 40 years of my working life as an industrial electrician for Boeing in Everett, Washington. If you have ever flown on a 747, there is a good chance I wired some part of it. Maybe the cockpit instruments, maybe the cabin lighting, maybe the electrical panel that keeps the whole thing from falling out of the sky. It was good work, union work, the kind of job my father would have been proud of, though he died before he could see it. By the time I retired last year, I was making $75 an hour. I have a pension of $3,200 a month and about $480,000 in savings, most of it sitting in boring mutual funds and treasury bonds. Nothing exciting, just steady growth compounding over decades. Every dollar came from crawling through crawl spaces in aircraft fuselages 40 feet off the ground, working in temperatures that reached 110 degrees in summer. I have scars from 480-volt shocks that should have killed me, but did not. My hands shake a little now, not from age, from nerve damage. I have moderate hearing loss from 4 decades of pneumatic tools and jet engines screaming next to my head. The ringing never stops. My hearing aids cost $4,800 out of pocket because insurance decided I did not medically need them. I have arthritis in my right hand that makes it hard to hold a coffee cup some mornings. But I am alive. I am retired. I thought I had earned the right to spend my final years in peace. Then my son decided I owed him everything. Before I tell you what happened, you need to understand something about my past. I was married once before, at 28, to a woman named Linda. We met at a company barbecue. She had this smile that could light up a room. We dated for 6 months and got married at a courthouse in Seattle. We bought our first house together and had a son. Damon was born on a Tuesday morning in February during one of the worst snowstorms Seattle had seen in a decade. But when Damon was about 5, I started noticing things. Money, disappearing from our savings. Bills not getting paid. Linda always had an explanation. I believed her because I wanted to. Then one day, when Damon was 7, I came home early and found foreclosure notices. I went through every bank statement from the past 2 years. Over $40,000 was gone, all from a casino 20 miles outside Seattle. Linda had been driving there 2 or 3 times a week. I filed for divorce 3 months later. Got full custody of Damon. The house was foreclosed. I moved us into a 1-bedroom apartment where I slept on the couch for 2 years. That divorce left 2 scars. First, guilt, irrational guilt, that I had failed my son by not keeping his mother in his life. I overcompensated, said yes when I should have said no. Second, vigilance about money. I checked my accounts every day, never borrowed what I could not pay back immediately, kept separate accounts for everything. Those 2 scars made me the perfect mark. The guilt made me too forgiving. The vigilance made me look paranoid when I finally asked questions. It started on a Saturday in late July, hot and humid, the kind of Chicago summer day where you breathe through a wet towel. I was driving from Milwaukee down to a suburb where my son had invited me to a housewarming party. 6 months earlier, Damon had called asking for $200 to cover utilities. He had been let go from his pharmaceutical sales job company restructuring, he said. I knew it was performance issues. Now, he was throwing a party at his dream home. I found the address in a gated community where every house looked like a magazine cover. I pulled up in my 2005 Ford F-150 and parked behind a brand new Mercedes SUV with temporary dealer plates. Before I turned off the engine, my daughter-in-law, Celeste, came marching down the driveway in expensive heels. No smile. "Beck, you cannot park that truck here." "Good to see you too, Celeste. Happy housewarming." She looked at my truck the way you would look at roadkill. "Seriously, the neighbors are going to talk. Can you move it? Maybe 2 streets over?" I gestured at the Mercedes. "Nice car. How did you afford it?" For the first time, she smiled. "Damon surprised me last week. We needed something reliable." Reliable is a paid-off truck. Reliable is money in the bank instead of depreciation in your driveway. How did you afford this place, Celeste? Her smile vanished. "We are investing in our future, Beck. Damon has some very exciting business ventures taking off. You would understand if you had ever thought bigger than just being a worker." That stung. Being a worker paid for Damon's college tuition at Washington State, $42,000. Being a worker kept a roof over his head when his mother was too busy gambling to pay the mortgage. "I am not moving the truck," I said, calm but firm. "If your neighbors have a problem with honest work, that is their problem." I grabbed the bottle of bourbon I had brought and walked past her into the house. Inside smelled like expensive candles and borrowed money. The foyer had a chandelier that probably cost more than my first car, imported marble floors, fresh flowers in vases that looked like they cost $500 each. People stood around in clusters holding wine glasses, making that hollow, small talk you hear at networking events. I spotted Damon near the kitchen island, covered in charcuterie boards that could have fed a family for a week. He was wearing a blazer over a designer t-shirt, trying to look like a tech entrepreneur. When he saw me, his smile faltered for just a second before he plastered on his salesman face. "Dad!" Too loud, walking over to clap me on the shoulder. Not a hug, a pat. Like I was a client he needed to impress. "Hell of a place you have here, son," I said, looking around. 5 bedrooms for 3 people? He laughed. "We have a cleaning service. We do not waste time on maintenance. We are focusing our energy on growth." He steered me toward a group of men discussing cryptocurrency and golf handicaps. "Everyone, this is my father. He was a master electrician. Real blue collar, salt of the earth stuff." The way he said it made me sound like a museum exhibit. One of the men, a guy with teeth so white they looked fake, looked me up and down. "Must be nice to work with your hands," he said with a smirk. "I pay someone to change my light bulbs. I would not even know where to start." They all laughed. Damon laughed the loudest. I looked the man in the eye. "It is not hard. You just have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You would be surprised what you can build when you actually work for something." The laughter stopped. Damon cleared his throat. "Dad, why don't you go say hi to Finn? He is in the game room." I found my grandson in a room that looked like a Best Buy showroom. 3 gaming consoles, a television the size of a billboard, shelves full of games still wrapped in plastic. Finn is 8 years old. He has his father's eyes, but hopefully none of his worst qualities yet. "Grandpa!" He dropped his controller and ran to hug me. "Hey, buddy," I said, squeezing him tight. "This is quite a setup." "Yeah," he whispered, looking around nervously. "But Mom says I am not allowed to play after 7 because the noise bothers guests, and I cannot touch the walls because the paint is custom." My heart sank. "What do you mean you cannot touch the walls?" "Mom says the paint was expensive. If I leave handprints, it will ruin it." I looked at this 8-year-old kid who had been given a mansion but was not allowed to live in it. A prison made of expensive things. "How about you show me your favorite game?" We spent the next hour on the floor playing Minecraft. He kept explaining the rules, and I kept pretending I understood. It was the only real conversation I had all day. Eventually, Celeste appeared in the doorway. "Dinner is served," she said sharply. "Finn, go wash your hands." Twice. "We do not want grease on the napkins." She looked directly at me when she said grease. Dinner was a performance. 7 courses on china that probably cost more per plate than I spent on groceries in a month. Steaks so rare, they were practically mooing. Wine that tasted like liquefied oak. The conversation was unbearable. boats, vacation homes, private schools. One couple debated whether to summer in the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard. I sat quietly, watching my son. Damon was nervous. His hands shook when he picked up his wine glass. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. His laugh was too loud, too forced. I have worked around dangerous equipment my whole life. You learn to recognize the signs when something is about to go wrong. Damon was showing every sign. When dessert was served, some fancy layered thing I could not identify, Damon stood up and tapped his wine glass with a spoon. Everyone, thank you so much for coming to celebrate our new home. Celeste and I feel incredibly blessed. But before we wrap up, I wanted to have a private moment with my father. Dad, could we talk in the study for a minute? The guests clapped politely. Celeste gave me a look I could not quite read. Anticipation mixed with something darker. I followed Damon through the house to a room at the back. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, mostly empty, except for a few coffee table books arranged for show. A massive mahogany desk that looked like it came from a CEO's office. 2 leather chairs that probably cost more than my monthly pension combined. Damon sat behind the desk. Celeste came in and closed the door, then leaned against it with her arms crossed like a prison guard. "So, Dad?" Damon said, loosening his tie. "What do you think of the place?" "It is impressive," I said honestly. "But I am going to ask you again, how did you afford this? 6 months ago, you were asking me for money to keep your lights on." He waved his hand dismissively. "That was just a transition period. I told you I have been building my consulting business, pharmaceutical distribution strategies. We are on track to do 6 figures this year." "What exactly are you consulting on? You got fired from your last pharma job for missing quotas." His jaw tightened. "That was a toxic work environment. I am doing much better on my own." "Show me a client contract," I said. "Show me an invoice. Show me proof this business exists." "Dad, I did not bring you back here to be interrogated." "Then why did you bring me back here?" Celeste stepped forward. "Beck, we wanted to have a serious conversation about the family's future, about being there for each other." She walked to the desk and pulled a folder from the drawer, slid it across to me. I opened it. Inside were mortgage documents, my name, my social security number, a signature that looked almost like mine, but not quite. I write with a slight tremor now, arthritis and nerve damage from decades of electrical work. This signature was too smooth, too confident. My stomach dropped. "What is this?" I asked quietly. "It is a gift letter," Damon said. "You co-signed for our down payment, $85,000. We wanted to thank you." I stared at the document. The date, July 10th, 2024. "I never signed this." "You did," Celeste said firmly. "In July. We met you at Bella Notte, that Italian place downtown. You were so happy for us." "I was in Orlando in July," I said slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Visiting my sister Margaret. July 7th through the 21st. 2 full weeks. I have boarding passes, credit card receipts, Photos with timestamps. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Damon and Celeste exchanged a glance, quick, nervous. Then Damon laughed, an ugly, forced sound. Dad, you are 73 years old. Memory issues are common at your age. You probably just forgot. Do not, I said. And something in my tone made him stop mid-sentence. Patronize me. I know exactly where I was every single day of July. I know exactly what this is. I stood up, still holding the folder. You forged my signature. You stole my identity. You used my credit and my name to buy a house you cannot afford. This is fraud. Federal fraud. Celeste's mask slipped. Her face twisted into something cold and calculating. Prove it, she said. I looked at my son, really looked at him. The baby I held in the hospital 38 years ago. No, wait. He would be 45 now. 45 years old. The boy I stayed up with during nightmares. The teenager I bailed out when he wrecked his car. The young man I helped through college, even when he dropped out halfway. He stared back at me with the eyes of a stranger. I will prove it, I said. And when I do, you are both going to federal prison. I walked out. Behind me, I heard Celeste screaming something, threats, probably, or accusations. I did not care. I got in my truck and sat there for a moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Then I pulled out my phone and searched for criminal defense attorneys in Chicago who specialized in elder financial abuse. I found Rebecca Ashford's website. Reviews were good. Credentials were solid. She had an emergency contact number. I called it from the parking lot of a Denny's at 9:15 that night. She picked up on the third ring. This is Rebecca Ashford. Ms. Ashford, my name is Beckett Remington. My son and his wife just tried to steal my identity to buy a house. I need a lawyer. Tonight. There was a pause. Are you somewhere safe? Yes. Can you be at my office in 1 hour? I will be there. Her office was in a modest building downtown. She met me there at 10:30, wearing jeans and a Georgetown law sweatshirt, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She made coffee and listened while I laid out everything. The party, the mortgage documents, the forged signature, the timeline. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and pulled up something on her computer. Mr. Remington, what your son and daughter-in-law did violates multiple federal statutes. Let me walk you through them. She turned the screen toward me. First, identity theft under Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 1028, specifically subsection A7, which covers using another person's identification to commit a federal crime. Maximum sentence, 15 years in federal prison. Second, bank fraud under Section 1344, deceiving a federally insured financial institution to obtain funds or property. Maximum sentence, 30 years. Third, making false statements under Section 1001. This applies to the fraudulent gift letter they created. Maximum sentence, 5 years. In practice, with concurrent sentences and assuming no prior criminal history, we are realistically looking at 3 to 7 years in federal prison if they are convicted. I sat there processing. 3 to 7 years. My son in prison. What are my options? I asked. You have 2 paths. Path 1, we sue them in civil court for identity theft and damages. You might win a judgment, but collecting will be nearly impossible if they are already drowning in debt. Path 2, we coordinate with federal prosecutors and build a criminal case. They go to prison, and the bank is more likely to forgive the fraudulent debt tied to your name. How do we build a criminal case? She smiled, not warmly, a predator's smile. We let them think this is just a civil family dispute. We let them believe they can talk their way out of it. And the moment they lie under oath in civil court, which they will, because people like this always double down, we spring the trap. Criminal warrants, federal agents, everything. You want to set a trap. I want to set 12 traps, Mr. Remington. Your son just has to step into one. Over the next 3 months, Rebecca worked with calculated precision. She hired a private investigator named Kowalski A., former Chicago PD detective, built like a fire hydrant, with the instincts of a bloodhound. His findings were devastating. Employment records showed Damon had not held a legitimate job since 2018, when he was let go from a pharmaceutical sales company during the opioid crisis investigations. After that, he created an elaborate fiction, a fake LinkedIn profile claiming he was vice president of sales at a company called Apex Pharmaceutical Solutions. Kowalski ran the business license. It did not exist. No tax records, no corporate filing, nothing. Bank statements told another story. Over the past 3 years, I had given Damon $127,500 in what I thought were temporary loans, rent money, car repairs, medical bills. None of it was ever repaid. Every dollar disappeared into the black hole of their lifestyle. Celeste had her own history. In 2017, she forged her own father's signature on a car title to get a loan. That is why she had been estranged from her family. For years, they had cut her off completely after pressing charges, then dropping them when she agreed to stay away. But the smoking gun came from subpoenaed phone records and text messages between Damon and Celeste. Kowalski laid them out on Rebecca's desk like playing cards. I found a tutorial on YouTube for forging signatures. It's easier than I thought. His credit score is 780. We can get approved for anything. Make sure you practice his handwriting. He writes with a shaky hand because of his arthritis. Don't make it too smooth, or they'll know. The old man will never check. He doesn't even know what online banking is. That last one became Exhibit A. Kowalski also uncovered something I did not know existed. An Instagram account called @RemingtonLifestyle. I do not use social media, but my grandson Finn had mentioned it once. Grandpa, why does Dad post pictures of houses that aren't ours? I thought he was confused. He was not. The account had 12,000 followers. It was filled with carefully curated photos, luxury homes, exotic cars, designer clothes, all fake. The homes were open houses. Damon and Celeste would tour on weekends and photograph as if they owned them. The cars were rented for the day. The designer goods were borrowed or counterfeit. They were selling a fantasy of success and monetizing it. Sponsorships from sketchy supplement companies, affiliate links for credit card applications. They were pulling in about $3,000 a month from this con. Then came the credit card discovery. 3 cards had been opened in my name without my knowledge. Chase Sapphire. Reserve, $17,800. Charged. American Express. Platinum, $11,200. Charged. City Prestige, $8,500. Charged. Total credit card fraud, $37,500. Combined with the $85,000 down payment forgery, they had stolen over $122,000, plus the $485,000 mortgage now sitting in my name. Rebecca compiled everything into a case file that was absolutely damning. "They are going to lie in civil court," she said. "And when they do, we have them." The civil trial was scheduled for November. The civil trial started on a cold Monday in November. Damon and Celeste had hired Marcus, Trent expensive Italian suit, slicked back hair, a lawyer who spoke in sound bites designed for juries. They were suing me for $900,000. Their claim: I had verbally promised to support them financially and was now reneging out of spite and jealousy. Judge Patricia Holloway presided, a woman in her mid-60s with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that said she had heard every lie in the book twice. Trent's opening statement painted me as a bitter old man who resented his son's success, called me financially controlling, emotionally manipulative, a father who abandoned his family in their time of need. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Then Rebecca stood up. She spoke quietly, which somehow made her more intimidating. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's case rests entirely on one claim, that Beckett Remington willingly and knowingly co-signed their mortgage. We will prove beyond any doubt that this claim is a lie. His signature was forged. His identity was stolen. This is not a family dispute. This is organized fraud." The trial lasted 4 days. Damon took the stand first. Under oath, he swore that I had signed the documents willingly at a Chase Bank in downtown Chicago on July 10th, 2024. He described the meeting in detail, what I was wearing, what we talked about, how grateful I was to help them. Rebecca let him commit fully to the lie. Then she put the photograph on the screen. Me at Disney World. Mickey Mouse hat. Churro in hand. Timestamp: July 10th, 2024, 2:47 p.m. She entered boarding passes, showing I flew to Orlando on July 7th and returned July 21st. Credit card receipts from Florida restaurants. Photos with my sister Margaret, each one time-stamped and geotagged. Mr. Remington, Rebecca said calmly. Your father was 1,200 miles away on the date you claim he signed these documents. So I will ask you one more time. Did he sign them? Damon's face went white as paper. I must have misremembered the date. You misremembered, under oath, in federal court. When Celeste took the stand, she tried a different approach. She cried. She claimed she was a victim, that Damon had manipulated her, that she was naive and did not understand what was happening. Then Rebecca introduced the text messages. Read them aloud in that same calm voice. Celeste's tears dried up instantly. She sat there pale and trembling as her own words condemned her. Judge Holloway did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Mrs. Remington, these messages show premeditation, conspiracy, and intent to defraud. You researched how to commit this crime. You practiced it. You celebrated your success. This was not coercion. This was calculated theft. She turned to the bailiff. Take them both into custody. 2 federal marshals stepped forward. Damon tried to run, actually bolted for the courtroom door, but a marshal caught him and pinned him against the wall. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that echoed in the silence. Celeste did not scream about her son. She did not scream about her freedom. She screamed, "My purse, my Hermes bag is $8,000. I sat there, watching my 45-year-old son in handcuffs, and felt nothing but hollow emptiness. 3 days later, Rebecca called me. Beck, the FBI executed the arrest warrants at the house. Damon tried to run again, made it to the garage before they tackled him. When they searched the property, they found something. Documents showing Damon did this before to your ex-wife, Linda. Forged her signature on a home equity loan 8 years ago. She never pressed charges because of guilt about the divorce. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My son was not desperate. He was a predator who had been hunting his own family for years. The house, the $485,000 monument to their greed, was seized within 24 hours. Fraudulent mortgage means immediate government seizure. I drove by once, a sheriff's deputy putting a padlock on the door. Orange sticker, property of U.S. government. Seized evidence. Celeste filed for divorce from jail. Took her less than 48 hours to sever the bond she swore before God would last forever. Damon went silent. My lawyer told me he was on suicide watch. I thought about Finn, 8 years old, parents in federal custody. I could not take him in legal complications, and honestly, I did not trust myself to do it right. My sister Margaret took him. She told me later that Finn did not cry. He just asked if he could bring his video games, did not ask about his parents. I sold my house. With the proceeds and most of my savings, I established the Finn Remington Irrevocable Trust. Principal, $400,000. At a conservative 3.5% annual return, it would grow to approximately 680,000 by the time Finn turned 26. The key clause, Rebecca called it the poison pill, stated that if Damon or Celeste ever attempted to access the funds, the entire balance would immediately liquidate and be donated to charity. I wrote a letter, sealed in Rebecca's office safe, for Finn's 26th birthday. In it, I told him everything. I ended with, "Your father was 45 when he stole my identity. Old enough to know better. I hope you turn out different. Love, Grandpa Beck. P.S. Never co-sign anything. Never." Then I bought a 24-foot Winnebago and drove west. Somewhere in Iowa, my phone rang. Cook County Department of Corrections. Collect call from Damon Remington. I rolled down the window. Cold air rushed in, smelling of cornfields. I tossed the phone out, watched it bounce, once, twice, then shatter under a semi-truck's wheels. The ringing stopped. Silence returned. I turned up the radio and kept driving. We spend our lives building safety nets for our children, hoping they never fall. But I learned that sometimes that net becomes a hammock for their entitlement. True love is not funding a lifestyle they have not earned. It is giving them the tools to build their own. I am 73 years old. I am alone. And for the first time in my life, I am free.